Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Debbie Cox-Bolton. I'm CEO of the New Deal, and I want to welcome you to the first of 3 programs we're going to be doing this week during the Democratic National Convention. Of course, we wish we were together in person in Milwaukee, but we're so glad we're able to gather virtually to discuss some of the important issues facing our country, including today's conversation focused on climate solutions. We're honored to kick off this conversation with a leading voice on sustainability from the private sector. Brad Smith is the president of Microsoft, where he leads a team of more than 1,400 business, legal, and corporate affairs professionals in 56 countries. He serves as the company's chief legal officer and works on a range of issues involving the intersection of technology and society. It is my very great privilege to welcome to the New Deal Milwaukee native, Microsoft president Brad Smith. But you've been increasingly known for your leadership on sustainability issues. So I just want to start with what inspired you to take such an active and public role on this issue?
I think it was fundamentally 2 things. The first is the science and the data. And what, in short, they show us is that for 2 centuries, the world has needed increasing production of energy to improve standards of living. We will continue to need more energy. But over the last 2 centuries, energy has always resulted in more CO2 emissions. And the science says that is not sustainable if we're going to protect the planet. So we need to find new ways to add energy, but reduce carbon. I fundamentally believe that over the course of this decade, almost every company is going to find that good sustainability practices make for good business sense. We were very deliberate in choosing the phrase carbon negative because we fundamentally believe that as a planet, we're going to need to be at 0 carbon by 2050, by the middle of the century, meaning that by that year, we need to be removing every year as much carbon as we emit as a planet. And that doesn't mean just paying for offsets that say we're not going to pollute as much. We actually need to be removing carbon from the atmosphere. And we also really believed that those of us who can do more need to do more. One of the things that I'm most excited about is state and local governments that are putting their money where their mouth is as a purchaser, by saying, look, we run bus services. We're going to figure out how to make our buses more carbon efficient. We're going to move ourselves over time, to have electrified vehicles. Or municipalities, or perhaps most especially states, that are really promoting more renewable energy, more solar, more wind. In the United States today, the African American and Black community is exposed to 50% more pollution on an annual basis than citizens who are white. And we need to address that head on. I think a lot of it does go back to economic incentives for private sector investment to create more sources of renewable energy, and also to partner with companies, like a company like Microsoft, or there's others obviously that are really important in a place like Boise that use a lot of energy. I think you often start by recognizing that large companies use a lot of electricity, pollute, but we can also therefore be sources of new solutions and really thinking creatively about how we can solve problems together in a way that neither of us can separately. I think that is a real path to progress. We need to find ways to bring the public together. I believe that will happen almost inevitably over the years to come because the problem is so clear. But we will be better served if we can move faster to do that. And I think we should recognize this, like every issue, is an opportunity. It will create new jobs, but it won't create new jobs for everybody equally. There will be some communities that will be harder hit than others. There are communities today that depend on coal that won't have that in their long-term future. And so I think it is an issue where we need to galvanize the public, but we also need to understand the different impact that sustainability has in rural communities, on farmers, on people who produce fossil fuels today. We need to empathize with their problems, and then we need to bring a future that creates an opportunity for everyone. But often that starts by understanding the different problems we face so we can all solve them together. You need great data in real time that can be analyzed, including with the help of data science and computers, to make better informed and more effective public decisions. And what is true for COVID is true for carbon. And it's really true in two fundamentally significant ways. First, this is ultimately a problem that requires measurement. We need to reduce our carbon emissions every year. And the only way to reduce it effectively is to measure it, and that requires data. But there's a second dimension as well. We've all become familiar with comparing the COVID disease rates, for example, in our state with somebody else's state, our country with somebody else's country. This will be even more true of carbon, because carbon, even more than COVID, respects no border. You can actually stop people from coming into your country or state. You can't stop carbon from crossing the border. What that means is that this problem, more than any problem that humanity currently faces, inherently requires a global response. And the only way to bring governments and countries together is, frankly, to measure things together and measure them in a common way. We've all learned a lot about how to do that better in the last 6 months. We need to take that learning and apply it to this big problem, arguably the most important problem of our time.